Hi, I'm Sarah Flynn, and welcome to another episode of Book Drops. I have Don here with me.
Hi, I'm Don, the manager of the literature department and the coordinator for the Center for the Book.
So the topic today is romance, and I'm kind of taking charge.
All the books are over there.
No, Don did historical fiction last time, and I'm kind of taking charge of this one. So,
And I am looking forward to learning.
Good.
I am open to all genres, and I am looking forward to finding out all that you know about romance.
I have tried to cover my bases, and there's so much that I'm even learning as I was preparing for the show. And so I had a lot of fun with it. So I'm going to share lots of good recommendations. So get your TBRs ready because there'll be ones you want to write down. I'm just going to start off, and then I'll kind of mix in some, different things along the way and get some recommendations going. So I wanted to kind of do Bridgerton first, just because it was such a big show. And it's one of those things that come in for romance readers, and everyone's like, this is amazing. And we're like, yeah, that's what a romance book is. When you're making fun of romance books, it's perfectly magical. So romance readers like it. Really, the only few rules for romance are that there's a happily ever after or a happily for now, which is becoming more common in newer romance books.
So Romeo and Juliet is not a romance.
Definitely not. Yep. And then some people are saying like Nicholas Sparks, not a romance author. There's always like anything where it's kind of tragic at the end.
Good.
Not a romance, so that's good to know. And then the love story is kind of the central theme in the book, is kind of the other loose one. So Bridgerton, the first season was about one of the daughters. So actually my favorite book in the series is the second book, which I'm hoping is going to be the second season, which is the oldest brother, Anthony. It's called The Viscount Who Loved Me. And I mean, this has it all. I will say the best scene in this book is a croquet scene, which it sounds ridiculous, but if they don't include it in season 2, I'm going to lose it. So Anthony decides he's the patriarch now. His dad died young. He's like, I'm just going to get married to some socialite, just whoever it will do, because, I'm kind of jaded. I don't really care. So he picks this, young debutante. And the older sister is like, I don't want you marrying this guy. So she is watching over her every step of the way. So they get invited to this house party, go to, for this whole weekend. And they call it Paul the Model, but it's croquet. So Kate, who is the older sister, is super protective. And she grabs what is called the black mallet of death in croquet, because you have the colored, mallets. So just dominates and puts him to shame, and it's great. So
I'm just visualizing this in my head as you're describing it too, so I can definitely see that as being a very interesting visual presentation too.
I think, so be looking out for that. And if you want to get ahead of the next Bridgerton, this should be on your list. And all of the siblings are different books in that. More on the contemporary side, and before I hadn't read as many contemporaries. I was a historical romance reader and in my own little rut, so this has broken me out of that. This book is so much fun. It's called Get a Life, Chloe Brown, and it is about the Brown sisters who are in England. There's 3 of them, and there's 3 books. The first one is about Chloe, and she's an interesting heroine because she has fibromyalgia. So like chronic pain, she's kind of had to withdraw a little bit, hard to keep up with friends, things like that. She has a brush with death and decides she has been living kind of too much of like a hermit for too long, and she needs to get out there. So she makes a list of everything she wants to do and starts like ride a motorcycle, go out and get drunk, all these things. And she's trying to cross them off her list. And there is a super for the building, who they've kind of like butted heads a few times and just don't get along. And he starts helping her with some of these tasks because he has a motorcycle, he takes her out, some things like that. It's fantastic, funny, super sexy. I just loved it. And I read the other 2 sisters' books immediately after this. So just do all 3.
Even whenever you said she had fibromyalgia and there were problems, I knew it was going to end happily because you told us that that's how a romance is supposed to end. So that,
you can kind of guide through
takes anxiety off there.
Exactly. You can guide through these little things, but in the end, it's going to be okay. So I have so many. I'm having trouble. I wanted to put a plug in because I learned a lot about romance from two different places. One is the website Smart Bitches Trashy Books, which is amazing. It's been around forever. They have great recommendations and reviews. And then something I just found recently, I was telling you, is Fated Mates podcast, which is a romance book podcast by author Sarah McLean and her friend Jen Prokov. And I just things that like subgenres that are like more niche than I had known about. So,
and how many subgenres did you say you discovered in your
I'd
journeys?
say there's kind of 6 regular and then there's 30 beyond that. So we'll never hit them all, but I'm gonna just try and go through some here, and we might have to do another show sometime. I have to talk about, which we have talked about before, book talk on TikTok. There was a book going around a little while ago, which I was talking to Don about, which is called Planet Barbarians, which everyone was reading. And I don't have a copy up here. It is just bonkers. Blue aliens, super sexy blue aliens. These ladies, it's like set in space. These ladies get trapped on a planet, get abducted by other aliens, dropped off on this planet. I mean, it's ridiculous, but kind of fun.
Sometimes that's the best kind of fun.
It is. So I will say my kind of problem with it was there was some rape, and there were some things that didn't quite fit into a romance for me. And these days different things fly, and there's dark romances which have more like taboo things in them. So it was funny to read because it's ridiculous. But I would like to say for romances and some new romances, you can look at booktriggerwarnings.com. And if there's things you don't like to read about, you can just really quick, I went on there and looked up Planet Barbarians, and it said there's abduction, there's dubious content, there's rape. So then you're like, oh, I'm gonna steer clear of this. So, but some people, really enjoy thrillers and different things, and maybe that doesn't throw them off.
That's a great little resource to have. Wow.
So so you can kind of, pick where your safety zone is.
Yeah.
So then kind of branching out from aliens, we've got Ruby Dixon again, and people are saying, oh, Planet Barbarians is a little much, but she has a dragon series. So Fire in His Blood is the first book. This is another one. It's post-apocalyptic, and there's a portal that opens and dragons come through. And humans are kind of in these makeshift cities, which are kind of built to protect us from dragons because they keep attacking. But they're shapeshifters, and they're looking for mates. So our heroine kind of gets put out as like bait to try and tame one of the dragons, and similar vein to, being abducted and things of the sort, but super sexy and racy and fun and really a quick read, but maybe not for everybody.
So the dragons shapeshift into human form.
Yes.
And,
yes.
Okay.
So
I was gonna say, that was not the picture I had in my head when you were talking dragons. I was like, oh, that could, okay. But, and now it makes sense. Okay.
And these have kind of grown out of, in the 2000s, the big paranormal was like exploded. So I kind of brought 2 of mine from the 2000s that I really liked. And then, so it kind of moved beyond like vampires and shapeshifters to aliens, dragons, fairies, things that just are a little more off the beaten path because everyone got kind of over it. Right. But I just wanted to mention too, Hunger Like No Other, Cressley Cole. She is just amazing. This is an insane, huge series, so you can just keep reading them and never stop. Vampire, she's half Valkyrie, blood sucking, everything you would want from a vampire romance, and there's not much more I can say. Just it's a fantastic series and just super fun. The other vein is shape-shifting, but they shape-shift into big cats. So lions, tigers, this is also an enormous series, 23 books.
Oh my heavens, wow.
So Harmony's Way is this one, which I remembered liking, and it's about one of the female breeds. So they kind of have this whole mating thing and shape-shifting, and you can use your imagination, but super hot, a lot of fun. And if you've never tried one, try a shape-shifting romance, because
now you mentioned both of those have multiple volumes.
Yeah.
Is it the same author that writes all of them? Do
Same
they farm
author,
it out, or?
all of them. And then the best thing is you kind of meet someone and there's like friends or something, in the group. And then the next one you meet, so you kind of like know the people. And then as you're reading the ones farther along in the series, you're like, oh, I get to hear about Harmony and how happy she is now. So it's nice. So like even like Bridgerton is a big series. And then you meet, different people along the way.
So with something like that, can anyone pick up like anyone in the series to sort of get the idea, or?
There's two very different.
Funny you should ask.
Yeah. Ways of thinking about it. I really think for a lot of these, you can pick it up anywhere as long as you realize, well, the people in the other books are going to get together, and that's not spoiling it for you. Then you can start anywhere in any of these series. Yes. But if you're one that I really need to just be deliberate and do each book in order, you could do it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, really, there's not like many overarching themes. It's really self-contained.
Okay.
Speaking of TikTok, Katie Robert is an author on there. She is really funny, super prolific. I heard her on the Fated Mates podcast, and she said stress makes her write more. So during the pandemic, she's just like cranking out books, which is great for us. So I read this, and then I'm in the middle of another one that they were talking about, and I couldn't finish it in time. So, and that's a mafia book. So she like is all over the place, really talented, mostly contemporary, a little bit of paranormal, and racy, just bonkers. Love it. This one's called Neon Gods. I'm waiting for the second book. The first book is the only one out right now. It's a retelling of Hades and Persephone, but set in like the modern era. So they're like socialites, and her mother's trying to set her up with Zeus, and she doesn't want to do that. So she flees to the underworld, which is just like a different part of the city. And
it's funny that you mentioned Hades and Persephone, because I was going to mention Lore Olympus, which is a comics, a web comic that they're also making into I believe it's a Netflix series, an animated Netflix series, but it's a very, very teen YA oriented sort of thing. But it's the whole Hades and Persephone sort of in an updated version of thing. So, and we actually had a book discussion on that online one time, and we had the largest attendance of any program I think we had. So the word got out that we were talking about Lore Olympus, and there's a big fan base out there for that. So
that's great.
If you're interested in Hades and Persephone, Lore Olympus might be another thing you might want to look up as well. So. And
that's the best thing about romance too. You could be like, well, I really like mythical retellings.
Exactly.
Just Google it, and there's 50 romance books that will fit that profile. Got to talk about Beverly Jenkins. So I am actually going to get really close. This cover is amazing. You can see that. Tempest. So Beverly Jenkins, this book, I'm going to try not to just gush away. This is post-Civil War, and it's set in the Wyoming Territory, and there's a doctor, and his wife died, and there's not many women in that area, so he sends away for a mail order bride. So she answers it. It's interesting. She went to college at Oberlin. Oh, this is post-Civil War, which I thought was interesting. So she grew up on a ranch and can shoot. She's a little bit tough, but educated. She answers this, and so she's going to meet him, and if they like each other, they're going to get married. So she's on her way there. Her stagecoach gets attacked by bandits. So the driver is driving, and he said, shoot back at these guys. She picks off a few of them. They're regrouping, and they drive for a little while. They come back with all of these guys. She starts shooting again. Well, the sheriff and a bunch of guys from town had come back, grabbed all these bandits, were coming to make sure they were okay. She had shot back a few times, shot her intended doctor in the shoulder, which is hilarious because they get back to town. Everyone in town gives him the hardest time. So he was able to just, it was like superficial, but like, oh, your bride is just shooting. So he is put off right from the start, and his late wife was kind of more demure, and he is not ready for Reagan. Just she's says what she thinks, and it's a fantastic heroine, really strong, headstrong, independent. And this is another one where I am in the middle of reading this, and I found out his sister in this town has her own ranch, and she's amazing. And her name is Spring. And I started her book on audio while I was still reading this one because they're that good. So Spring's book is called Wild Rain, and it's part of a different series, but they're kind of interconnected. And just quickly, she's great. Same kind of character. She's independent, had a tough time, kind of in her 20s, and is just kind of turned off by men and just wants to just run her ranch, not be bothered. And a reporter comes to town to interview her brother because he's the doctor in the town. And it's kind of like a flipped gender. Normally in romances, the man is gruff and doesn't want to, settle down. And so in this, it's flipped. And she just, he's nice, but I'm not really. So he wears her down along the way, and it's great. So Beverly Jenkins.
That's awesome.
Yeah. One that you saw on my list, which actually I didn't get. This is the same author, but I didn't get the exact book. Is His Cocky Valet by Cole Mccade, and it's exactly what you think it is. It is so much fun. So Ash, he's about in his 20s. His dad runs this huge corporation and is in hospice, gets really sick and kind of hid it from everyone. He needs to take over this company, and he's really ill prepared. He's kind of like a rich boy. And he hires a valet who is about twice his age, named Brand. He's really icy. He's detached. He's almost like a bodyguard would be. So he comes in, he just helps, gets everything together with the business, gets him, to, not be such flighty kind of rich kid and taking charge. So he's not only domineering and controlling in the boardroom, but in the bedroom as well. So there's that extra perk. So Ash kind of gives up control to him, and it's really fun.
I have to ask you, we talked beforehand about the typical gruff, male character, and you said you discovered a subgenre that you had not heard of before.
That are not gruff, typical male characters, which is called cinnamon roll heroes. Again, I have to talk about the Fated Mates podcast. They had a whole episode about cinnamon roll heroes. So just what you would think, super sweet, lovey-dovey, just, the perfect kind of wonderful, not gruff hero. Gruff. Yeah. So there's a little bit of everything. Oh my gosh, I'm going to do a sports one, which wasn't something I had read until the podcast. They had mentioned this, and it sounded like a lot of fun, and it was. I finished this just a few days ago. This is a hockey romance. So I don't know if you can see, it's a really great cover. He's kind of on the ice. Man Down by Kate Meter. And this is one where there's different series, probably 8 or 10 books in a series, all about this Chicago hockey team. His name's Gunnar, which, big surprise, sounds like a hockey player. He's a recluse. He's out in a cabin when you meet him. He's texting his wife, who had passed away years ago, and he just tells her what's going on and that he's lonely. He doesn't go back to play professionally because he's really just broken down. And one day he gets a text back, and this is 3 years later. So they had canceled her phone number and just gave it to somebody new. So he starts texting with this new woman, and I won't give much more away than that, but
there's a happy ending.
There's a happy ending. Yeah. So
just saying.
Yeah, a lot happens in between, but I was surprised. I actually have a football one waiting next because I really did enjoy this. So it's kind of fun to break out of my normal Regency kind of thing. Okay, this is near the top. I'm good. I have to it's hard to not gush about everything.
I think your top is it's more of a plateau than it is a peak.
And then there's just a few down here that I don't like.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a few up here that I'm not.
The mountainside. Yeah, exactly.
This one I read. Okay, this is called It Takes Two to Tumble by Kat Sebastian. and it's a fantastic cover. This is pretty much The Sound of Music. Ben is a country vicar, and then Philip is a gruff sea captain. Again, Philip, his wife died, and he's been away at sea. They have a bunch of children, and the nannies, they run the nannies ragged, so they're just running all over the town. And Philip has to come back and kind of meet his learn to parent his children, and Ben has been kind of stepped in and has been helping to nanny these children in between, and they kind of start to have feelings for each other, and it's great. So all right, another what I'd call kind of a rom-com, modern one is called Accidentally Engaged. And this is by Farrah Heron. This is set in Canada, and present day, Rena, her parents think it's time for her to get married, and they're kind of traditional parents, and it's time. And so they keep trying to set her up with some of her dad's business partner sons and all this, and she's really tired of it. She's a really good cook and just likes to do her own thing. So this guy moves in across the hall, Nadeem, and handsome, funny, just this great guy. And she finds out working for her dad. So it's kind of a setup. So they like each other, but she's just resisting it because she's not going to like anyone who her dad is setting her up with. Well, there's a cooking competition that comes up, and it's really more a family or couples focused, Food Network kind of thing. And so they fake an engagement to get her on the show. And then, of course, they spend more time together. And it's really funny. There's a really good thing about she goes away and she has sourdough starter that you have to baby and take care of, or I don't know anything about making bread, but it doesn't stay good. And so he's looking after it, and he's so nervous that he's going to mess this up. So she comes back and he has 20 different bowls of it because he didn't want to mess it up. So fun. All right, Dawn. All right. I'm going to talk about a subgenre that isn't one of my favorites and people do love, is romantic suspense, which usually is Navy SEALs, things like that. So more of thrillers mixed in. So if you can see this cover, I've been obsessed with reading this book and just never had time. I'm this is the perfect time. So The Darkest Hour by Maya Banks. It's an ex-Navy SEAL family, and they have their own security firm now, and you can tell there's a different book for each brother. This was a little like I was saying before, trigger warnings and things. This was a little too much for me. The wife of one of them was presumed dead on a mission kind of trip. They find out she's being held prisoner by this cartel, and they need to go and rescue her. So it is just, there's some violence against women. It's just a little too much for me. Maybe just, it's just not my idea of romance. But I know a lot of people love it. So let me know what you think. If, you do like these, I may have just picked the wrong one. Another one is Sam's Creed by Sarah Mccade. And another thing, it's okay to stop a book when you're just not enjoying it. And out of all of these that I loved, here are two that just weren't for me. This is a Western. There's this warlord after the heroine. He just wants to marry her, abduct her no matter how she feels. There's so much talk of rape and kidnapping if this warlord catches up with her. It wasn't fun and just a little too much. But so there's two that were just a little bit off my radar.
And just so you know, I'm not being rude to my phone, but we have actually Valentino, who joined us on our podcast. Always said that he's currently reading "Seek You: A Journey Through American Loneliness," which is a great new comic. So you want to just tell us that one too?
Nice.
So that's we have some activity on the comments. So thank you all very much for commenting. But don't forget that it lives forever on Facebook too. So.
And how much time are we?
We are at 4 minutes.
Okay.
Yep, we got time.
I've got a few more in here. All right. Had to throw in a Scottish romance. And Tessa Dare is amazing no matter what she writes, but if you can see, there's like super kilt, just fantastic. So this is When a Scot Ties the Knot. Great premise. Maddie's a wallflower, and her family's trying to make her go to balls and meet eligible men. She wants none of this. She just wants to stay at home and like read. She makes a fake engagement with a Scottish captain who's off at war, so nobody can meet him, and she just can stay at home and do what she wants. So years later, this guy shows up, and it's like, oh, hey, I'm your captain. And her whole family's like, oh, you're here. We thought you died in the war. And he had gotten all of the letters and kind of fell for her. I know. So it's just, of course, then she's like, no, I wasn't really writing to you. You need to go away. And he doesn't. So. I
will say in having romance books come across the desk for reserves and things like that, they have some of the best puns, I think.
You have to I think so many titles are taken when you get a good one like that. Then.
Exactly.
Okay, Hellions Waltz, another fantastic cover. I got the audiobook here. Olivia Waite, Sophie's family, they had a music shop in London, and they lost it to this swindler who came through and took all their tricked them into losing their money. They had to move to this small town, and Maddie lives in this small town, and she's trying to protect the women that are in this weavers guild. They're getting taken advantage of by the mill owners and by the fabric shop in town. So she has all of these plans to try and protect these women and make a future for them that's fair. And Sophie and her kind of butt heads a little bit, and it's really fun. I don't want to give anything else away.
That's I will throw in that if you're looking to expand into comics and graphic novels and manga, and since we have Valentino evidently watching us stay, please feel free to add some comments there as well. But there are, especially in manga, there are so many different kinds of romance in manga, everything from the meet cute sort of thing all the way to the far other end of the spectrum. Yeah. So that's one of those things that if you are, and speaking of, multi-volume sets, those typically, 15, 20, 30
easily, yeah.
volumes. So there are some definite ones out there. I mentioned Laura Dean is breaking up with me in the past, so I can never recommend that one highly enough. So if you're looking for it, it has a nice ending. So I know that it's sort of a romance now. So I know the definition.
Oh, nice. Well, I had a lot of fun doing this, and I have more that I can talk about some other time. But definitely, if you ever want romance recommendations or want to comment with what you've been reading, I would love to hear. And thanks, Don, for letting me.
No, this is great. This like I said, I learned a lot. I'm just fascinated by the breadth and depth of the genre. So
definitely, it's not just. Yeah.
And whenever somebody wants a good romance, I know it has to have a happy ending now.
Yes. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us, and I really appreciate it.
See you next week. Thanks. Or next time.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.